improvement for next
with
year.
you after the board meeting about blinds.
Is there a pattern?
Perfectly
Is-
imperfect.
I've got
That's right.
OCD, so I can't
exactly
stop
what
That was
looking
part
at
of
it.
the criteria for the first time I was ever observed as a teacher, that my blinds be all the same height.
Are you kidding?
I am not.
Wow.
I did very well with it, but I was like, does this have something to do with instruction?
No, it doesn't. Wow.
Madam Chair, we're ready to go.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Cook County Board of Commissioners regular meeting for Tuesday, April 12th, and we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, well, as we get started, are there any adjustments to our agenda this morning? Any adjustments?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
I will support.
Thank you, Commissioner Svalson. So we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Public comment. Do we have any members of the public here today for public comment? I do not see anyone. Do we have any written comments, Administrator Yorkie?
Madam Chair, I have not received any.
All right, thank you so much. So we will move on with our consent agenda items. Is there anything a commissioner would like to pull? If not, I would accept a motion to approve.
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda as a whole.
Thank you, Commissioner Swallowson. Is there support?
Support.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Mills. So we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So the next item on our agenda is a public hearing, but that cannot occur until 9 a.m. So I'm going to recommend we jump ahead to Human Resources, and we'll ask Leah Ekstrom to come forward. Good morning, Leah.
Good morning.
I just
All right.
Thank you for warning.
There we go. All right, well, I'm here this morning before you about 4 different job descriptions asking for approval, as well as just an update in human resources. Yeah, so I'd invite Robbie Haas to come up. I have the first 3 are Highway Department. The first one is a new job description, an environmental specialist. Both of these have, or all of these job descriptions have gone through the Personnel Committee as well as the Classification Committee. And this is a new position within the Highway Department. And I don't know, Robbie, if you want to speak a little more as to what that
No,
entails?
it's kind of an interesting opportunity to address a need that we've been hearing a lot about. We've talked a lot about this job through the Highway Committee, personnel, hearing from Soil and Water, Forest Service, DNR, Grand Portage about kind of this need that we have throughout the county that hasn't been addressed historically. And to now formally have a position to address it, I think is an exciting opportunity. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is a job grade 160. You come in, be part of the 49ers bargaining unit.
And I'm just really excited to see this because I know through Soil and Water, we've discussed the need, and also Gunflint Trail Scenic Byway has talked about invasive species, and this is a really positive direction for our county, and we can help in a number of ways, so thank you so much. Any questions or discussion?
I don't have any questions, just because we've kind of went over it last meeting and then also
Yeah.
in personnel. And I guess I just want to reiterate that I really appreciate you, Robbie, taking a look at the department and the needs and recognizing those and coming forward with requests just to help improve the organization as you see. And I just appreciate that leadership, so thank you.
Great. Is there a motion to approve the position?
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion to approve the Highway Environmental Specialist job description.
Thank you, Commissioner Smallison. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. So we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank
All
you.
right.
Next, I'll bring forward the Highway Maintenance Superintendent job description. This is an existing job description. It was, or it currently is called the Maintenance Supervisor position. Josh Dix holds that position. And so this job description was reviewed, went through the Personnel Committee, and went through the Classification Committee. It is actually at the same grade as it currently is. What we have changed slightly are, of course, redoing everything, reviewing the job description to make sure that it fits fully with all the duties that he is currently doing, as well as slightly changing the title. And that fits within what other departments across the state are doing and helps lay out within the department a more clear path of hierarchy, for lack of a better word. So, anything you want to add, Robbie?
No, there's a great summary to it. Basically, we just renamed it, in short. So supervisor becomes superintendent. And actually, yeah, there's our current,
Oh,
there we go. That helps. So you can see, currently, here's as it stands. This is how everything it looks. So currently, Josh Dix is our maintenance supervisor. We have a vacant maintenance foreman position. We talk about engineering stuff a little bit later. But, so then what we're proposing going forward is a maintenance superintendent and then a maintenance supervisor. It's just renaming, giving more supervisory role to the old foreman position. And like we've discussed in the past, really helps address kind of the day-to-day needs of the crew.
All right. Any other questions for Leah or Robbie? Commissioner Storley.
Thank you. Good morning, Robbie.
Morning.
So these two positions for the public's interest there are people already doing this, you're just revising their job description? Or are there openings with these two positions?
So right now so Josh is doing the superintendent position. It's not posted right now because we wanted to tweak the old foreman position to make it a supervisor role. So if everybody agrees at the end of this discussion, we will be posting that then for a maintenance supervisor position.
Okay.
Other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you much, Commissioner Mills. Is there support?
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. So we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Well, then moving on to the third of the Highway Department, it's the Maintenance Supervisor, which we have alluded to in the prior discussion, was formerly called, or currently called, the Maintenance Foreman, and changing the name to Maintenance Supervisor. Again, any questions on that? Or-
Any questions?
For what it's worth, too, I know this was a question last time that got brought up was budget impacts with all of the stuff we're talking about. And so, looking at the proposed chart, you can see between a superintendent, a supervisor, we'll include the maintenance technician as well. We talked about that before, but that already got approved. And then similarly, on the engineering side, the environmental specialist, and then even adding a third technician. We'll talk about the assistant engineer later. That's something separate. Pie in the sky, my dreams. But all of that stuff, superintendent, supervisor, maintenance tech, the third engineering tech, and an environmental specialist, the impact to our budget on a whole year is $5,700. So a whole lot of nothing, I would argue, to be doing more. So that, I know, was a question last time. We had Lisa put together some numbers, and so roughly that's what we'd be looking at as an impact. Obviously, adding an assistant county engineer would be a larger impact, but that's something that we still have to work on a job description. It still needs to get talked about through a variety of committees and ideas, and, you know, we can talk here if you want about it, but I know it needs to get workshopped through a lot of other things before we do that, so.
Precisely. All right. But thank you for that explanation. It's very helpful. Commissioner
Madam
Spalls.
Chair, I would move to approve the highway maintenance supervisor job description.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Spalls. And is there support?
Starley support.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. So we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. And then the final job description that I have before you this morning is for the Public Health and Human Services Mental Health Crisis Response Worker position. This is a new position that has been created in conjunction with Public Health and Human Service as well as the Sheriff's Department. This is a new position. And I'd entertain, any questions, comments that I can help assist with. This has gone through the Personnel Committee as well as the Public Health and Human Services Committee, as well as the Classification Committee.
I just want to say I appreciate all the work and effort you've put forth towards this position, as well as many, many other people. And we know we have huge needs to address, and I'm really hopeful that this position will be of great value to our community.
Madam Chair, if I could just add, this position is being paid for using our American Rescue Plan Act dollars that you all approved the budget for back in December.
Correct. All right. Other questions or comments?
I
Commissioner
have
Hawkins?
a comment, because thank you for responding to my email.
Yes, yes.
And I will admit that I obviously didn't understand the purpose of this job description when we discussed it previously. To me, when we say mental health crisis response, that means that you are responding to a current crisis that is happening. And so I was kind of surprised to find in this job description that there was no clause that said there may be outside of your normal workday responsibilities. And I guess that kind of concerns me, that 4:30 comes and there's a crisis going on. I guess when I supported this position previously, I thought we were going to have somebody on staff that potentially could respond to current crises. And to find out that the crisis can only occur between 8 to 4:30 or whatever our work day is, I guess kind of concerns me. So I would love to hear other comments about that. Why
Yeah.
was I wrong on that?
Where our gap is in the daytime crisis response. We do have services from Birch Tree and First Call for Help now for the evening crisis response. So that's kind of the whole point was to meet the daytime crisis response needs. So, and that's what we're hearing from law enforcement and hospital and clinic staff, and then also our county staff as well. Just from what left when HDC left.
And so maybe Administrator Bjorky, you can help me figure out, how does this work? If a crisis occurs at 4 o'clock then, at 4:30, does that person say, I'm sorry, you're going to have to transfer to somebody else? Or how do we manage our employees to not walk out on our clients?
Right. Well, I think, first of all, most of our staff just wouldn't do that. And I think people who do this work, who are called to do this work, don't have that kind of ethic. I would not expect, if there were a situation like you're describing, I would not expect somebody to say, oh, time's up, gotta go, sorry. That's not gonna happen. And I think there's, in a situation like that, I mean, we already have flexible scheduling, and we allow people, if they're, if somebody has to work a long day for whatever reason, we allow them to shorten a subsequent day or get comp time or what have you, and I would expect the same to occur here.
And that was I kind of thought that myself. I know we have good people working for us. I was just curious why there maybe wasn't a clause in there, because how does that work with, like, our IT department that comes in on weekends because there's computer crashes? I did not go back and find the IT job description, but I thought there was something in there that said you may get.
Yep, and there is, and of course, in our, excuse me, in our current job descriptions, we have the clause that this is not exclusive duties, there is always that wraparound service. IT does have an on-call in there, as do some of our social work positions. But that is for extenuating circumstances where you could be expected to be overnight response or weekend response, whereas working maybe longer into the day, maybe into the evening, which I would argue many of our positions potentially have to do, is not included then in the job description, because we don't have that expectation that overnight at 2 a.m. you might be getting a phone call.
Okay. Thank you, I appreciate further explanation, and that was just my concern when I initially read that, thinking, oh, that's not what I originally thought this position was, so.
Yep.
It's a good
Thank you for
Appreciate
the
that.
clarification.
Great. All right. Well, I would entertain a motion.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Mills. Is there support? Thank you so much, Commissioner Swallison. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you very much. I just wanted to give you some brief updates or be available for any questions that anybody might have of human resources at this time. It's been a busy last couple of months, as you can see from our consent agenda. It has been a lot of approval and a lot of unfortunate acceptance of resignations. I think the last time I spoke with you was either the end of January or the beginning of February. And since then, we've hired at least 11 full-time positions, and some of that includes internal transfers. We've also a number of temporary employees have come in public health and the recycling center. Right now, we currently have some positions open, some seasonal positions that regularly come, the sheriff's office, soil and water. And actually, I think we're well underway for the sheriff's office to be filling those positions. We have public safety, telecommunicator, and jailer, formerly dispatch. It's a mouthful. But those positions, we have 2 candidates that we are working through background checks, and hopefully we'll be starting in May, and as well as some interviews with others. I know that's been a difficult position to carry, so it's a tough job. We have the highway department interviewing. We have public health and human services, hopefully filling social work position for adult services that's been vacant because of retirement, filling those positions, as well as the mental health worker, and now we have a new eligibility specialist opening. But filling up the county attorney's office, MIS. It's been busy. I have to give a big shout out to Kathy Polly for all of her work. Her part-time days have been filled up scheduling people for interviews and gathering all of that information for everyone. So that's the employment end of that. And we're also working towards getting that compensation study up and going and getting our committees ready and hopefully doing an entire employee outreach program starting soon. So.
Well, thank you so much for all your work. It's just amazing, all the changes that have occurred, but all the positions you've been able to successfully fill and the transfers that have occurred, and we just appreciate the incredible work your department is doing and that you are doing.
Well, thank you.
Training by fire, huh?
It's been a lot. Almost 6 months in now, so.
And it feels like 5 years, right?
Yeah, it's felt like maybe it has been. Yeah, it's close.
And 1 month probably at the same time.
Yes.
Like,
Well,
Madam Chair, may I ask a question, and not to put Leah on the spot
Oh, boy.
here?
Yeah.
But I was looking at the website last night and counting the number of vacancies that we currently have, and it got me wondering, do you and Kathy feel like, I know we'd gone down in the number of vacancies that we had, and now it's
Yeah.
trending back up, and I just wondered if you and Kathy feel like you have the bandwidth to respond to everything that needs to be done right now?
It comes and goes,
Yeah.
I'll say that, to be honest, but, and it's an ebb and flowing. The fact that we've been doing a lot of internal filling, which I think is fabulous, to give employees an opportunity to expand and grow within the county, I think is great to see. But then that opens up another job job for me, but.
Right?
But I think Kathy and I are doing okay right now, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Talk to me next month and we'll see.
All right.
Well, thank you so much again. We really
Yeah.
appreciate your
Yep.
amazing effort.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Well, as long as Robbie's still here, we can probably sneak in a few items before our public hearing. So Robbie, if you'd like to come forward to talk a little bit about everything highway.
Sure, happy to. Got 9 minutes, we can do it. So the first thing is the construction inspection services on there, and I'm sure everyone saw that and went, whoa. It's a lot of money. It's $375,000 thereabouts to have WSB and a couple of their sub-consultants help us with construction inspection this summer. It's every single project. And that's new. We haven't done that before. Normally, we, our technicians will handle 1 or 2 projects in-house, and that's all we can do. That's our bandwidth, just the demand that projects have. And so what we're shifting to this summer, for a myriad of reasons, is I have 2 technicians right now and 5 projects. So you can imagine something somewhere has to give. And so what we have is kind of an interesting opportunity to try this new setup where instead of our guys being boots on the ground, counting tickets every day, counting trucks, measuring gravel, all the tedious things, I'll say, they're going to kind of shift into project management, where each of them will have, 2 projects or 3 projects, and they'll be able to hop around to different ones to check in with the consultants, with the inspectors that are there every day, every hour with the crews to make sure things are okay, to answer questions, make sure we have the right forms filled out, et cetera. The other thing, too, that's worth pointing out with this is, each project gets billed individually. And so it's not a $375,000 price tag that the county has to pick up. I think the only project we have going on this summer that is levy dependent, and it's not even, I would argue, purely levy, it's TST, is the County Road 45 project. And so of that chunk, you can see on the sheet, it's actually the highlighted portion, it's the leftmost highlighted one. It's about $120,000, a little, 121 is what we would be paying for those services. The rest of it is reimbursable through state aid or special town bridge funding. It's reimbursable up to, I think it's 25% of construction costs. So you can imagine, though, if, think of the Cross River Bridge, for example. I think would that come in at 1.2 or 1.4 million? So 24% or 25% of that is a lot of money that we're definitely not going to hit, but we can cover the $101,000 that'll cost. So that's reimbursable. It also kind of brings into discussion a larger conversation of the assistant engineer and the cost to that, and the cost of staff versus doing this. When we have limited people and we have a way to fund all of these projects affordably, I would argue, we can pay for all of this or get reimbursed for it. This is a way to do more with less, in my opinion. The other option is to not do this, and we do 1 or 2 projects a year. A quarter of our bridges are still deficient. That's completely unacceptable, in my opinion. And so, I'm hoping to have all of those done by 2026 or 27. which means lots of projects every year. And so this is a way to do that. So I guess I'll stop rambling, and if anyone has questions on it, I'm happy to answer them.
Commissioner Spallison.
So that when you do this as an applied time type of thing, and you're getting reimbursement, always the trick to get that to work is the ability to do the accounting.
Yes.
And have you looked at that and worked with your folks? Because it's a bit, I'm not saying it's a big change because they always had to apply their time to various projects and that type of thing. This will be more formal. If you want to get reimbursement, you have to be able to count.
Yeah, and it's no different than what we do on any other project with state aid or town bridge or whatever. When we apply for or to get reimbursed, it's similar of when we get bills for construction projects.
Yep.
It comes out of the same pot of money. We were talking about that a little this morning. It's just a different line item. Instead of construction, it's engineering services. So, but yes, there's a lot of accounting, and I thank God Lisa is still here and she can never retire.
Okay.
Other questions? Commissioner Hawkins.
So, we're doing, first of all, my
Yes.
first question. Are you asking us to approve this contract, or is there
Yes.
something already set
No,
with
I
this
have it.
com-
I brought this up because initially, before, I brought this here because initially our plan this summer was we were going to do County Road 45. It's a local project. I wanted our guys to do that because then that saves local money for other things. We can get reimbursed on the rest. But with, the resignation of our engineering supervisor, that put me down a person. And then similarly, for what it's worth, one of our technicians, their family is expecting a child in the middle of the summer. So now I'm kind of down to 1.5 people. And that's a big project and demands a lot of attention. And so then to have only one person really solely focused on County Road 45 then leaves every other project to be managed by myself, which isn't going to happen, honestly. I don't have the bandwidth for that. And so, yeah, so it'd be, so this was new. Originally, we were just going to do Cross River and Carlson, and that had already been approved. And so then as, things began developing, it became apparent. I was like, I need to come back and talk about this. So that's why we're here.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And I get, there's lots of transition happening in your department, and
Yeah.
your org charts show that. So do you expect this to be a one-time, we need this because we have 5 projects this year?
Yeah.
I looked at what's next on our agenda, and there's lots of projects in the next few years, so.
There's a lot. Yeah.
I'm trying to take all of those things on our agenda here and see how they all fit together.
No, and that's great. And I think it's great, too, because we happen to talk about jobs in the future and project plans and whatever, and it's also very much related. My goal, I think, with when we do construction inspection especially, is if it's a local project and we can do it, I want to do it in-house. Clearly, that saves money. It's our guys doing it, which is great. I am curious to see how this goes. If we're able to do more within our budget, if we can afford to do more, like I said, there's not a shortage of work out there. And, but if we can do more and this goes well, I could see this as maybe an every year thing. It could be. I guess I don't have a hard answer for you. I like this setup. I like having our guys as project managers, as, kind of not sitting there counting trucks all the time, but being able to do a few different projects. I think we're able to do more, which I like doing. But yeah, I guess it kind of depends. There's a lot to do, like you said, in the next few years. So, I might be coming back with something like this in another year or two. It's hard to give an answer. A
And
definitive
it'll change
one.
next month, that's.
Well, I know, yeah, at this rate, yes.
Administrator York.
Yes.
Sorry.
Robbie,
Yeah.
thank you for that overview. The other big variable in this equation, of course, is hiring, right? We have a lot of churn that's still going on. We're undertaking this comp study. I think a couple of the biggest things that are hamstringing us right now are I think we're going to find that our wages probably need to go up a little bit. That's not a foregone conclusion, but there's a lot of upward pressure on wages right now across the whole job market. The other thing is, of course, we have this ongoing housing shortage, which makes it really difficult to recruit people from outside the county. And so those, as I'm looking ahead to what's our organization going to look like in a year, and in 2 years, and 5 years, those factors weigh most heavily on my mind. And so, hopefully, by the end of this year, we'll have some clarity on the wage question, although I think even beyond this year, of course, that's going to continue to be dynamic. But then the housing issue is something that isn't going to go away anytime soon. And so in terms of recruitment, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again, although I haven't really come forward with a formal proposal, I think at some point the county is going to have to get into the business of either owning or leasing housing for new staff as a landing place. Because, that's what all the major employers in the county already do, right? The resorts and whatnot. They know that if they want to bring in staff, they're going to have a place for them to land. And we don't have that advantage currently, and it continues to be an obstacle for us. And I don't have a plan yet to put on the table, but just thinking about the viability of getting new staff on board, that is a really big stumbling block. So I think, using contracted services to kind of fill some of these gaps is something that we have to do right now. Over the long term, will it be the most cost-effective approach? It might be in some situations, it might not be in others. But, staffing is something that is going to continue to be an issue for a while. So just really appreciate your efforts, Robbie, to find ways to fill these gaps and get the work done, because like you said, there's no shortage of work.
No, there's not. And for what it's worth, historical context, I guess, normally we've had more techs than 2 or 1.5 if, he goes on paternity leave for a little bit. And then also we've had interns in the past as well. So normally there's been a lot more, and interns would be the ones counting tickets, doing X, Y, and Z with that. And so we this summer just don't have that. And so that's why this is probably far more robust, I guess, than what we've ever done. But yeah, it's interesting to look at. I think it's a new way of doing it. I'm kind of excited to see how it goes, and just take it one season at a time.
Well, certainly, given the fact that this is a contract for 2022, it'll give us a view into how effective it is, and if it's something we want to look at as a model for the future. So I appreciate your thinking about that, and thinking about also the many projects we have here in the county that need attention now. So thank you for doing that.
Thanks.
Commissioner Mills.
Madam Chair, thank you, Robbie, for bringing this forward. And kind of like, we've talked about in the past, it's the balance of doing a lot that needs to happen versus balancing the costs and that sort of thing. And especially with the challenges that Mr. Yorkie pointed out, I think this is a really good way to work towards that. And there's going to be a lot of opportunities, I think, from the feds to really get more done. So if we can find avenues like this, I think it's a really good strategy. So thank you.
Thanks.
Madam Chair, I would move to approve the construction inspection services.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Spallison. Is there support?
Support.
All right, we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
So we'll give you a break right
Yes.
now because we have a little public hearing.
I'll be back.
So we're going to go back in our agenda to item 4. And would anyone like to take a break before the hearing starts?
Well, I'm probably going to be apologizing a couple times. I was trying to eat quick before I came in, and I can't get rid of something right there.
Okay.
So
Anyway.
fishbone.
Yeah.
All right.
David's trained up on Heimlich, we'll be good.
Yeah, hopefully.
All right, well, we'll move into our public hearing for the business subsidy policy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Administrator Yorkie, if you could dial Bruce Kimmel's
Oh, yeah, for sure.
cell phone, that'll be the easiest way for him. His number is 651.
You know, we're publicizing this, so
Uh-oh.
members of the public can,
Call Bruce.
Call Bruce.
I don't know if he, there you go. Let's see.
Have questions about anything in the world, call Bruce.
Any questions, just call Bruce Kimmel at,
Hi, Bruce.
good morning, Bruce, it's James York in Cook County.
Hey, James, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I'm just watching on the live stream, and I just figured out that it's about a 10 or 15 second lag.
All right. Well, you are live, and we've got the audio feed going, so
Great.
so I'll leave it to you and Brady to talk about this.
Yeah, do you want me to do a little bit of intro just for the agenda item?
Sure.
You know,
Yeah,
we've been considering these two economic development abatement projects, our first in Cook County since last fall. We were in a rush last fall because they had a deadline for grants with MHFA. And this was one step, along with bonding that we were doing. So potentially we could have done this last fall, but this step is something it's a basic required step before you can give an economic development abatement or any type of business subsidy. So we could give subsidies with revolving loans, with TIF projects, with, other things, but this is just a basic policy the state requires that you create before you give one of these abatements. So we have to have a public hearing before we create a policy, and you could finish it today, or you can continue public hearings if there's still some questions after we talk today to the next meeting, for example. We do have kind of a timeline with those two projects. They're hard, let's say, deadlines are, they're going to get news on whether they're getting these grants at the meeting for Minnesota Housing Finance, which I saw on their website is April 21st. So I think that, I don't know if they find out that day, sometime soon after that. And then they have a process that they go through. So it's somewhere in a month or so after that they're going to look to us before they give that grant to say, where's your abatement agreement with these entities? And we have to do this first. So that's why we kind of rushed to get this on an agenda. And what I gave you in a packet is an example. Most of it's boilerplate from the statute itself, but it's from another county's perspective that's, similar to us in some ways. So it's going to be very similar to what we would write if we wrote it all ourselves. And I had highlighted some of the key areas, one of which is to create job goals, which is not an absolute requirement. So Bruce and I were talking about what kind of, job goals we might have and the rates that you would set those at. And actually, you can, at the end of the public hearing, if you decided that those weren't our goals, you can set that at 0. So we don't have to create that at this time. If a few years from now there was a TIF project, something else where job goals, you went, yeah, we need job goals, we could have additional public hearings and set those at that time. So that's kind of I think the basic background there. And I think you've all had a chance to read that proposed policy, and as I say that, the definitions are mostly out of the statute, and you can see one in there that might catch your attention, assistance for housing, but that's not the kind of housing that we're talking about, not for businesses developing housing, so that doesn't apply here, which is why we would have to have this policy. And maybe, Bruce, do you have any other additional comments?
Yeah, thanks, Brady, and thank you, commissioners. Brady's done a great job of giving you an overview of what this policy is designed to do. Candidly, the business subsidy policy, although it sounds very important and official and like it's should be the be-all and end-all as it relates to possible county participation in private or nonprofit development, business subsidy policy is really just something that the legislature imposed as a requirement over 10 years ago without a whole lot of rhyme or reason or thoughtful integration into what counties or cities might already be doing with tax abatement or TIF or other tools. And so it's kind of this third wheel, if you will, where you obviously need to have it. So it's important in that sense, but it in and of itself doesn't serve any really important policy purpose. It's just a requirement, kind of like doing a CIP hearing before you sell bonds to make courthouse improvements. It's just something you kind of have to do. And so it can be kind of awkward or difficult to figure out what is the right level of requirements to set out in your business subsidy policy versus in a tax abatement policy or in a future TIF policy. And I'm kind of a mind of having it meet the statutory minimum requirements, but that you don't spend too much time trying to perfect a county approach to economic development or to incentives overall for any kind of development. Not trying to perfect that in the business subsidy policy, because it really probably matters more as to your use of specific tools like abatement here in the case of the two TOPD projects. So I think Brady's done a great job of drafting this. I do think you could very well remove the job and wage information, at least for now, out of this, because I think it causes more confusion than it's worth, especially since the goal of the TOPD projects isn't really employment. It's quality, attainable housing for workforce. And so I guess with that, I would welcome any questions for either Brady or I, but just sort of with a general recommendation of not to feel like this has to be, again, the be-all and end-all as it relates to telegraphing the county's approach to incentives, but really saying, okay, this meets a statutory requirement. We need to have this in place, but we still have the ability to either revise this policy in the future and or to put more details in our policies as it relates to those specific tools such as abatement and potentially TIF. So I'll leave it there.
And I'll just add that the next step, well, one step is as soon as you approve this, then we'll have to have a public hearing with the two entities appearing, and they have to agree to follow this.
That are requesting the abatements, okay.
Yeah, so they have to agree to follow the subsidy
I see.
policy. So we'll have to do that. And I forgot the second part, so I'll come back to you.
Commissioner Swallows.
Just for clarity, because we already have a revolving loan fund,
Yeah.
we weren't required to do this. There must be a threshold.
Right, it's 150,000
I
is
see.
the basic threshold.
Okay.
So in this case, both of these were, I think Bluefin was just over 700,000
Right.
over that period of time. Estimated taxes, it's, it's an estimate. And the other one wasn't quite as high, I think it
Right.
was 600.
I just wanted for others,
So-
for other folks that might be
And-
watching, that they
Yeah.
understand that this is new because of the level of,
Yeah, and we've known about this since it came into existence, but at the revolving loan fund, the committee, as a committee, we didn't recommend it to the board to do that. We said, we'll just stay under
Yeah.
the level, and then we don't have to deal with the business subsidy policies. So, and what it means is we can give bigger loans. And in loans, it's different. It's 75 is still the limit on loans. That's a little different from this. But you just can't give a subsidized interest rate. So
I see.
we've given
Okay.
revolving loans up to 250, but we go around and use the local market rate of banks.
Now,
So
that helps. That
And the
clarifies.
minute they're, if they had a $75,000 loan, they come in later and ask for another 50, we say, your loan's going to market rate if you do, and they can, but, so we've just stayed under it.
Okay, thank you.
So a question I have is, you said you modeled the policy after another county. How current or how recent was this policy developed, or their policy? Just looking at statutory requirements and also looking at that 110% of current poverty level, if that's appropriate given right now, today.
I think it's close. What, you actually told me, Bruce, I think it was 2017?
Yeah, the policy that we worked from, or that Brady really worked from, was one that was adopted and revised by Rice County. Again, I think it was within the last couple of years. And that wage item is really at your discretion. And again, I think the specifics there are probably liable to cause more confusion or debate than is really necessary here, because job creation is not really part of those TOFD projects. So I think it's definitely worth thoughtful consideration in the Cook County context. If you do have a business that's coming in, that's really the main goal is for job creation. Although, it's kind of ironic because you have so many jobs up there that need people to fill them. But in any case, I would say I've seen that measure in other policies, 110% of poverty level, but I could very well see you wanting to adopt something stronger than that, or at a higher level, if and when the time comes for a project that really is job-centric.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
So would we take that entire section out, 3 business subsidy requirement number 2, or just have a language to set it at 0, you think?
Well, the thing is, your actual agreement can set it at 0 or just say it's not applicable. But you could also just take it out of the policy for right now. Because this policy is not just for TOFD, it's sort of starting the ball rolling on having a policy overall. And that's where it gets, again, kind of goofy, because you've got this policy, you've got an abatement policy, and then you're going to have specific agreements with these 2 entities. But I guess at this point in time, for the sake of efficiency, I would recommend taking it out of the policy, or you could always say job and wage goals. For projects that jobs and wages are a stated county priority, these thresholds will be developed at a future time. However you want to, you can have a placeholder in there, or you could just take it out altogether.
It seems like it might be cleaner to just take it out at this point. What are other commissioners thinking?
I would be opposed to that. I believe.
Yeah, it's okay to leave
We
it
need
as a
more
placeholder
discussion.
to
Right.
let folks know that the opportunity is there. We don't choose to apply it right now because that's not the aim of what we're doing.
My question.
I get your point that
Yeah.
it makes it perfectly clear. If you just take it out, then
Yeah.
people can't read into it anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Commissioner Storley.
Good morning, Bruce. This is Commissioner Storley.
Good morning.
So we take that out. What is the meat then of this policy? What are we saying then if we, don't have the criteria of the wage floor and specific dollar amount, which is so fluctuating anyway? So what is the meat of the policy? We take that out. Is there some points here that I'm missing?
You know, Commissioner, I don't really think this has meat as it relates to the Tofty projects, frankly. I mean, there is a but-for test, you know, there are other things that you're supposed to consider that are in section 4 as criteria, but candidly, this is a square peg that you're trying to put in a round hole as it relates to the Tofty projects when it comes to the job stuff. And, you know, this policy was created when economic development was more jobs, jobs, jobs. And now we really have a more nuanced understanding that incentives or assistance of different means can apply to all sorts of means to help an economy, including the provision of workforce housing. So you make a really fair point. I guess I don't have a really crystal clear answer for you, but I would say that you've got to approve something, right? Okay. and I'm trying to figure out what is the best thing to do to meet the good faith of this law, but say, okay, it doesn't make sense to have this job creation goal for those projects, even though of course there will be jobs created, but probably more indirectly.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I guess, in looking at this, yes, this is the two developments that we're considering in the future. Then I think probably the future means anybody who comes to the county for tax abatement, this would apply to that.
That's correct.
It would,
but then you can also amend it, and you have the ability. This isn't the only thing you can require, commissioners. I think that's really key to point this out. You have the ability on a case-by-case basis, to decide what you want to do, providing any incentive at all, what level incentive, what kind of tool to use, and what requirements to have. There's nothing that says, that any kind of a quote precedent set on one project, precludes you from requiring something different for a subsequent project. And that's been well tested in case law as well. There's been people that have tried to say, well, that's not fair. And economic development is something that you truly, positively have sole discretion over on a case-by-case basis. And I would say you should absolutely expect to amend this business subsidy agreement if and when you have a project or you get into a phase where you are seeing more projects that are about job goals.
would it, just because it's our focus now, would it make any sense to put in the very beginning, business subsidy, public purpose? It's got 1 through 5, which are basically about jobs and general economic growth. That might be enough, but could we say something about housing?
Absolutely.
To create
if you're asking
affordable,
me, that would definitely be prudent.
just a simple statement would be to create affordable housing.
To support economic development, or, I guess,
Yeah.
however you want to put it.
To support.
To create affordable housing for those working.
Yeah, in Cook County, make it simpler, yeah.
Well, I guess that was my question about number 4, clarification, when it says to provide essential products and services. Well, a product, to me, was housing. That's how I read that
Yeah,
line,
so-
because that was where my head was.
Yeah, you could actually add it to that line.
Which then, this is my concern, that we just want to do the bare minimum, and this was difficult for me to read and understand. What is it? So, of course, I went to quite a few different counties, and I read their business subsidy policy. And I guess I really do not want just a basic policy. If this is important for us, and I get sometimes the state makes us do things that I think are stupid, but if every county that wants to do this sort of thing is required to do this, I think it is imperative that we take the time and make sure it really says what we want it to say. And there are parts in there that I think we really need to have a broader discussion about. And there's some good ideas about other counties, and maybe that doesn't fit, but I kind of hate to do this quick because we're under a timeline. Well, we kind of knew last November this could be coming. And I just do not feel comfortable having this come before us and approving this as written today without more discussion.
We don't have to approve anything today.
We don't, yeah.
And
Okay.
we have the time right now, as long as it takes, to have discussion and do this. That's my perspective. I don't feel rushed to do anything right now.
Well, and then you also, if you're concerned about the timeline for the two projects, you could do this as Bruce suggested, and then schedule meetings throughout the summer and fall and revise it for the next potential projects.
Yeah, if I can just jump in, Commissioners, I apologize, I can't raise my hand and ask to be recognized, but I would recommend something along the lines of what Brady is suggesting, and I apologize if I came off as overly glib or cavalier. I understand that you want to get this right, but it's more than just this policy. It's about how it relates to your specific tool policies as well, and into the application process, and it kind of just is this, interconnected organism, and you want to make sure that all of the pieces are clear and you understand how they relate to each other. But I would recommend, in the interest of not having to continue the public hearing, or maybe only continuing it one time and getting this in place so that you can move forward with agreements with the two TOFSI projects, I would recommend as your advisor to approve a form of this, and you could even put in the policy that, or as part of the resolution approving the policy, that you will be considering a revised version of this policy no later than X date, so that you're laying out a deadline for yourself to have those discussions, to really think about what makes sense not only for this business subsidy policy, but in relationship to the other policies and practices, and not just sort of kicking the can down the road indefinitely, but saying, by, I don't know, September 1st or whatever you want to say, you will have you'll have another public hearing and a new policy, or maybe even policies to consider at that time. I think that would be a good way to sort of do both and without slowing this down for the TOFSI projects.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Mills.
Thank you, Bruce, I didn't, so when Commissioner Storley asked what the meat is, in my mind, the meat was jumping through a hoop that we're required to, and we already have consensus on what our goals and priorities are with the projects. And so I'm not too worried about this, and I appreciate the advice to, pass this along and then revise it as we see fit. Because I think there is, to Commissioner Hawkins' point, there is a lot we can discuss in this, and should. And I think there is significant community interest in it as well. But I don't see anything problematic with having this kind of boilerplate language to start with, and then adjusting as we see fit. I think the jobs discussion could be quite lengthy, and the wage discussion, maybe not, but I think there's a lot of community interest there. So I also appreciate the recommendation to pull that for the time being, because I think if we do approve something, then we're approving it clearly, and that we're putting our stamp of approval on that. And so if we pull it, then it's keeping it clean, and then we're gonna come back and revisit that and really dig in, which I think is quite important. So Just wanted to-
Commissioners, I think that makes a lot of sense. I apologize. Tuesday mornings can be kind of hectic for someone who advises counties. If only you would spread out your meetings a little bit more. I had a bond sale with Roseau County. They decided to copy you and sell some transportation sales tax bonds yesterday, and I need to hop on with them to do the award of those bonds. But Brady, I'll email you as soon as I'm done with that, and if you are still discussing, I'd be happy to jump back on with you. But I think I've shared my 2 cents, and I'll look forward to working with you and Brady and James, however you see fit to bring all these policies into alignment.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems like, from our discussion, that clearly we want to spend some more time with this, but we also know that it's important to have a policy in place. And I like his idea of setting a timeline for all of us, maybe September 1st, to review this, but.
And I feel like the specific, the crux, what we should be working on are those development agreements
Yes.
and those specific provisions in there. If we're going to spend a lot of time before
Yeah.
these come up, is the specifics on that, I think is more critical, because that's one time, once you
Right.
agree, if you do those with the entities, that's done, whereas this can be revised.
Yeah, we can, that's what I was trying to say, is our strongest tool, I feel like, are those agreements. And this is just kind of like, okay, here's the general idea, and then,
It's just, we have to do this to get to those.
This is the hoop we have to jump through before we
do the
define our
agreements.
agreements. Commissioner Hawkins?
And when we approved our tax abatements for these projects, or let them go through, at that time I said, wait a minute, there's all these things that need to be taking place, and was it a chicken or an egg thing? And now I'm just feeling like, wait a minute, now we're going to have that agreement based off the other 2 things, and I just want to make sure we spend time on that tax abatement, thinking about what we really wanted that to be for. And this is the next step in it, and I kind of want to spend some time on this to make sure it's really what we want it to be for. And it doesn't even say housing in there.
Well, I like the idea, and when you brought up, and we talked about housing, under item 4, say essential products, comma, housing, comma, and services, so that it's in there and it's stated. I think that would be really important to our public, as well as to all of us, just to add that word housing, that's important. So I would be comfortable adding that, and then, again, coming back to a further discussion later on, as Bruce suggested.
I'm still going to suggest we take some time this week and work on this. Let's talk to our revolving loan fund, let's talk to our EDA, get some more input. I just do not feel comfortable in thinking all this way through this document as it's in front of me today, based on what I read over the weekend. I'm like, oh, why did they put that? Why is that there? I don't know. And the fact that we haven't even had a workshop about this or anything, or nobody else in the community even has a chance to really absorb, what is this? I just feel very uncomfortable with this right now.
Can you be more specific, please?
About
Your discomfort?
that we have this document that supposedly needs to have certain criteria in it, and I am not comfortable with stating what is the business subsidy requirements. And are we saying right now I assume that paragraph still has to be in there. And are we just saying 1 and 4 is all it's going to apply, and we're going to take out, or 3, I guess we have to leave in because it's a public notice, but,
I think it's just the wages that was recommended to take out. And I don't, like, to Commissioner Storley's point, there's just not a whole lot here, so I don't see, and there could be, and should be, when we have further discussions about wages, because everyone cares about that. It's just that, it's just a hoop, we gotta check this box, and I'm not particularly thrilled about it, but it doesn't alarm me, so that's why I was curious what's your discomfort?
Here's,
my discomfort is we knew back last November we needed to do this. And today is the first time we've had a discussion about what is going to be in there. That makes me feel rushed.
Okay. So your
Yes.
discomfort is not with the content as
Well,
much as,
Content also, but the process, yes. Oh, I'm back to process.
yeah, but so as far as the content is concerned, could we discuss more about your discomfort with particular content items?
Yeah, the job language, that really concerned me.
Yeah.
can I just add one thing? From the statute, this is 116J.994. It's subdivision 4, wage and job goals, just so you know what's in the statute. It says, after a public hearing, if the creation or retention of jobs is determined not to be a goal, the wage and job goals may be set at 0. So, right there, the goals for the number of jobs to be created or retained, yeah. So that's, it's clearly allowable, but you can revise that. I mean, you could come back in a month from now and say, now we've talked it out, or 2 months, we've talked it out with everyone we've had here. Now we want to put some job and wage goals in. So you can do that. It's just a notice for a public hearing, 10 days. But first, of course, have meetings and discussions, so.
And I guess if we are discussing adding housing specifically by name there in our priorities, then we should have some housing goals, which I would think would relate. There's some more specific language from, that other counties are
Yes.
using, and I think we could use that in our housing. Well, you don't get $600,000 for one house. That's why I just really wanted to have more discussion and
we
make
don't-
sure we're doing things.
We don't necessarily, as Bruce said, we don't necessarily have to do that in this document. This is a floor, a base requirement. We have an abatement policy. The board approved it last
Right.
June, I believe. So that's the document to be more specific. And I think that's what Bruce was saying also. You can get more specific in those documents and in your specific development agreements. But this can be just a general base, and you work above that.
Correct.
in your
Commissioner
specific.
Sampson?
And I wanted to just clarify, there's still the specific additional document for these developments that we have to put together.
Right, the development
which
agreement.
Maybe it's just me, because this is my first time going through this as well. But I looked at, those documents are going to be the ones, how will this housing be used? What are the requirements to be in this housing? What, all of those, the specificity I looked at was going to flow through those documents. This one, I didn't think we wanted to get too overly specific here, at least initially, because we're meeting a statutory requirement to put something on the books that relates to what you're doing, but doesn't hinder what you're trying to do as well, unless, as a group, you believe you need some guidelines put in there, unless you do. And right now, I didn't think we did for this. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm open to it, to listen to it, but I guess for me, that's what helps me, because I can see you're concerned about specifics in there that you're putting some guidance and requirements for people. If you're gonna use this money, this is what has to flow from it, right? And I think that's that next document that's coming, or at least that's my view. I'm asking Brady, I believe that's correct.
That's what I believe also.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah. So I didn't think we were done, right?
Well, I knew we weren't done.
Yeah. Okay,
But
so-
I was thinking that's going to be based off what we previously did, and I want to, so that was my concern.
Yeah, well,
I
and
want
that's
the
what I'm
next
trying to say
document
too.
to say,
In my
"Oh, wait a
own mind,
minute,
I'm trying
that's
to
not-"
line up the documents. To be honest, I was more focused on that one and lost track of this one, and then when it came up, I was like, okay, you're right, we need this one, and then we still, before we grant those, final things, I want to see what that specific requirements for control of those the housing and who's in it, and, or what requirements we're placing, if any, to put on various things.
So this is like the statutory foundation,
Yep.
and then our agreements are more specific. Is that correct, Brady?
Yeah, so what I read through years ago and now again, is that they want a ground floor so that you aren't treating these subsidies differently with everybody that comes before you. You have a standard, a ground floor standard. And so you aren't, unfair. Let's say we've treated one this way, now we're treating one that. You can have those differences in your specific agreements, like a development agreement. If it happened to be TIF, it could be different TIF development agreements, whether you're revolving loans, they can vary. But it's just to give they saw the wild, wild west out there where there was no ground floor. They wanted a ground floor across the state before you start giving the level now of 150,000. You have to put some thought into it. But this isn't enough. You need other specific agreements, but they just want a ground floor.
Thank you.
And I agree with Commissioner Selson, too. This is just the beginning, the basis, so the public knows that we are now going to start looking into this policy. If we do nothing today, and then all of a sudden come with all these different criterias, it doesn't give EDA, doesn't give anybody a chance to know that we're really working hard on this. So this is the basis today.
And when is the work on the development agreements going to be happening?
It's already started.
Yeah.
We've been looking for examples of agreements from other jurisdictions that we can use as a model for ours.
And when will that come before the board, and when does that have to be approved because of the housing funding?
Yeah, we don't have a specific date.
The first thing that has to happen is MHFA has to approve these projects.
Yeah,
So that's the
they have
first
to
step.
approve the grants. I assume that neither of the projects would go forward without the MHFA, but I don't know that. So it's potential that they could still want our economic development abatement, even if they didn't, or got approved for a lot less. So I just would like to be ready so that you guys aren't, we aren't behind when they come asking. But they said about a month after that approval is when they will need our agreements in order to finish the grant with those entities. So we're talking about the end of May.
But they need this before that?
We have to do this before that if they're going to, they have to agree to this policy, the two entities. We have to submit this to the Department of Economic Development, and then we can develop the agreements, or finish them, let's say. And we're talking about putting that on the agenda for next week at the Committee of the Whole.
I guess, given our discussion, I feel comfortable with this business subsidy policy right now. And then looking at those details in the development agreements, so that we are prepared, given April 21st being the date that we'll find out about the granting. Thoughts from other commissioners? Commissioner Smalls?
I mean, I wanted to see first, did we have agreement around setting the job creation and the wages, basically nullifying those portions for what we're doing today to be reviewed at a later time? I mean,
That's my understanding.
That was where I was hearing we were going, because that's not the purpose of what we're doing these, the abatements for. It's really focused on housing to be able to continue operations as we're currently doing it, to fill the jobs we currently have open here in the county.
Yeah.
But I do think we should set a time date on it, because you're right. I mean, we want to continue to grow, but first we have to start putting some of the structural housing pieces in place to sustain what we currently have. I'm seeing head shaking
Yeah.
mostly. No. Well, you're
I'm
shaking
not
your
there.
head, just not in agreement.
Not with you.
Okay.
And that's all right. That's
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah. that's-
And it could very well be the next type of projects that come asking for, it could be an economic development abatement, it could be a TIF project, it could be a loan that someone says, but I need your assistance beyond 75,000, and that would come right back to the board, because we don't have a policy. We would have to have a public hearing, and then we would have to set some wage goals. So we would have to work on that stuff for potentially other projects.
Well, I think this has been a great discussion, but Madam Chair, I'm gonna take a shot at a motion.
Okay.
I would motion, or make the motion, that we approve the Cook County Business Subsidy Policy with an amendment to change the wages and, what was the other piece?
Item 4 about the housing.
Yeah.
Wages and job development, state that those currently are 0 or nullified, right? And then on, to James's point, on section 4, however we choose to do it, add in to provide the essential products and services within Cook County, and including housing, or however we choose to put that, to add housing to that. That's my motion,
And-
however rambling.
And Bruce he is back if we wanted to call him again. He just finished at Rosso, so.
Support.
All right, so we have a motion and support. This is to approve it with the amendment to change wages and job developments at 0, or to nullify them, and to add under item 4, enhance the economic diversity of the county and to provide essential products, including housing and services.
Madam Chair, would we like to include something about when we'll revisit this as well, as far as giving ourselves a timeline?
We had talked, or I had spoken about September 1st as being a possibility.
And Madam Chair, I would amend my, my motion to include a follow-up review by September 1st for any changes or amendments to this policy.
All right.
I support that amendment. Madam Chair, is September 1st enough time, do we think? Number of balls in the air here, so looking at staff, to see if that's adequate, or if that's pushing it, or
I
if
think
that's too
it-
far.
I think it-
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think there's a perfect date, so it sounds fine to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least it puts a marker in
Yeah.
the sand that you're going to go look at it. You may decide,
Yes.
based on what's going on
You
then.
won't
that
let
you-
it go.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but if you're not gonna meet that, you gotta set a time and put some more stakes in there to,
And I think it certainly gives time for us to have conversations with the EDA, with the HRA, to gather all that input.
but it moves this process, it continues this process forward so we can support the abatements that are currently being approved.
Absolutely.
Madam Chair, the only other suggestion I'd have is for our future public hearings. There's general grumbling about daytime hours with that, and so it'd be really nice if, within this process, we can include some evening public hearing portion of it as well, which I think is, I can relate to the grumblings, for sure.
I-
Personally, I enjoy my daytime hours doing business, but not everyone is paid to be here, so.
I agree. Noted. All right, so we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay?
All right, motion carries 4-1. All right, would members of the group like to take a short break? And then we'll get back to our highway engineer. All right, let's take 5. Thank you. I just need to get up and walk.
Yeah, I hope.
Oh my God. Yeah. Kinda, yeah. It's, yeah, it's different. That's for sure. You know, when I look back historically, it's 1 or 2 typically a year. Yeah, no, I'm excited for it. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be interesting too, talking more, we'll talk a lot more about it, but, if we end up pursuing, which I would like to, the assistant engineer route, and then seeing like, we're adding a position, has an impact on the levy, no doubt about that. But then to see how much it costs to contract out stuff, you can say, well, yeah, it's reimbursable, but then it's kind of technically less we can do with construction, so it's kind of a give and take.
I just think this is going to be a really good
Mhm.
experiment for us to see how we benefit from these services,
Mhm.
what they're like, and then get your perspective on it.
Absolutely.
And so forth.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be good. It'll allow our guys too to like, just make sure the wheels are moving without getting too much into the weeds on stuff. I think the nice thing too is it'll take stuff off my plate when it comes to construction inspection stuff, so instead of me being the first contact, it'll be them, for stuff, which is perfect. If there's like really stick in the mud stuff, like that's when I should get a call, not about how big a road is. Yeah, which is a question. But yeah, no, thank you.
The other question I was going to ask you is the office now in the loft building?
Yeah,
Wow, okay. That must be a nice move.
it's nice, yeah, we're trying to reimagine 2 offices into 3 now, as HR has been hired. I'm ready to start working.
He's close by, considerably close by.
Yeah, if you come into the county.
And then do you have your meetings here or at the office?
Here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And we can go tonight to,
Yeah.
or reschedule it.
And it did get on the radio, so that you
Oh, okay.
and I hope Jordan's.
Yeah, no, I get that way, just with our solar or power system, or, you know, the different components of
Well,
that.
and that's the thing, technically, there's a lot of things, that you do this and it will help with this, but it may cause you an issue here, and you're sitting there,
Yep, balancing it,
and there's no, if there was a one size fits all, you wouldn't even care, you just,
yeah.
you'd do whatever you had to get that system and be done, but that doesn't exist.
And it would make life so boring.
Indeed.
Yeah, the county appoints 3 people, the city appoints 2 people. So it would be 1 for me right now.
And Arrowhead needs people. It's kind of like, whoa. But the main thing is just the word, you know.
Yeah.
I really want to talk about more highway stuff. I said, I really want to talk about more highway stuff.
Yeah.
I can't get enough.
Told Leah earlier, I feel like it rains, it pours when I have stuff to talk about.
Well, that's generally how things go.
That's
Yeah, you know.
just the way it goes.
So Robbie, I did jokingly ask if the cold storage building needed to be made in a mobile fashion, since it's been, the current one has been moved so many times.
Yeah, do you want it? We'll put some
Wheels,
you guys can have it.
skis,
Yeah, just to
you know.
get it out
I
of
was
there.
thinking skis.
More useful.
I like that. That would be
It
useful.
might add to the engineering cost, so
I think so, yeah. We'll just make a movable building.
when the wind blows, it starts taking off down the street.
All right. Well, everyone, welcome back. We are returning now after our public hearing to the Highway Department, and Engineer Haas has some information for us about a cold storage facility design.
Yes, so the recommendation is to award it to Architectural Resources Incorporated. I received a couple of proposals, and ARI stood out to me as kind of the leading candidate for this. If you remember, they are the ones that designed the bus barn right next door to us, and so they're very familiar with the area. I had a wonderful, kind of kickoff meeting with them, just talking about not only cold storage, but even the future of our whole campus. Yeah, I would entertain the idea of awarding the contract to them. I guess if everyone remembers the facilities tour that we took a while ago, everyone's smiling. Yes, you do. Okay, I can just stop there. Perfect.
I think we've gotten our money's worth out of that building.
More than our money's
More
worth,
than
that's
that.
for sure. Any other questions or comments for Robbie?
Yeah,
Commissioner
so they're
Hawkins.
going to look at the whole campus.
They could, and so
For
that's
this 32,000.
So if you look at the 32,000 is just the design portion, and actually some construction oversight too, which is great. for just the cold storage facility. There's an additional fee they included in there if we wanted to do it, where we could start looking at the whole, our entire campus. I think it was another $6,000 or $8,000. Yeah.
Yep.
And so I'm not, quite set on that, because I know our whole campus stuff is a much larger discussion of the county's buildings. We have a capability at the highway department to do some of our buildings, like we're doing with salt sand. This summer, that storage facility, we can leverage state aid dollars and, our undesignated cash. This is going to be a very similar process to that. We're going to leverage a portion of state aid dollars and our undesignated cash to construct this facility. But when you talk about, if we're getting into, a new office building, a new garage, that's outside of our funding capabilities. So this would be, the $32,000 is just for cold storage. And if we wanted to do a broader one, we could add another 8 to it and talk about kind of how our whole campus would look. But I don't know if we'll do that yet.
And my question about that is thinking about our capital improvement plan and the contract that we're thinking about to look at all of our buildings. And I wondered if any of this can be used for that, or is it $8,000 to look at the whole campus and buildings, or I'm just trying to get a sense of what that is.
Sure, no, that's fair. Yeah, I think the additional fee was just for the highway campus. And so I think it's something, though, where when you start looking at the big picture stuff, and I know the county's working on an entire capital improvement plan, I don't want to step over that or pay twice for somebody to look at the planning. And so I think if it's something where, as we're working on the county's capital improvement plan, if that obviously will involve looking at our campus, as well, and how everything fits together, I don't think that's a service we would seek then with ARI, and we would just stick with the $32,000 in design services.
Commissioner Follis.
And following our tours, when I think of the capital improvement plan and how that lays out, and then you do the prioritization and these types of things, as I recall all the various things that I saw, this one would certainly be sitting, maybe not number one, but it would certainly be very close to the top from a large expenditure building expense, no matter how we laid it out. So I'm perfectly comfortable moving ahead with this one because of the shape of the building and doing that, as well as, continuing to do these others, because I just feel that confident that it was going to be that high in the overall rankings, just my opinion, but.
Administrator.
Yeah, and I was just going to echo what Commissioner Swalson just said. We all saw what we saw, and the need is pretty pronounced, and I think we've kind of ridden that train on the cold storage building as far as the track goes, and now the track is ending. So I share your comfort in kind of moving ahead with this, and as far as any kind of duplication in the work that we're going to be doing on the update of the capital improvement plan. Any projects that come out of that are recommended as priority investments are going to have, we're going to have to contract for design services on those as well. So I don't see a lot of duplication here, or any really.
Commissioner Wells.
Yeah, I had a similar question about the 8,000 part of it, just if there's going to be duplication, if we wanted to have that service ahead of the cold storage, just as far as placement and alignment and all that's concerned. I mean, we know the need of the cold storage, and so that was my question. And yeah, just we're already going to have some redundancy with the CPI or the capital improvement plan, and I didn't know if this would triple that if we did that, or if we could exclude it from the larger, or just But it sounds like you're comfortable and confident with placement of the cold storage, and so that's...
Yeah, and we looked at, too, for what it's worth, kind of the ones that were done previously, just to have some idea of, what were other people thinking before, and, where we're thinking of putting it actually isn't where it currently is. We're looking at moving it back where, if you're familiar with where kind of that big pile of junk is, way back there. And so really affecting the campus as a whole, if anything, it opens up more space for us to look at a new facility, you know, if that is in the cards at some point in time, which I hope it is, but that's my opinion. That it leaves us with a lot of room, though, to build something somewhere. With this and even the salt sand shed not being in the way. It was another thing, you know, placement too has been in discussions with, you know, not only just myself or even, you know, our supervisors in the department, but with our staff and how they're the ones using it. Where do you guys think, you know, would be a good spot? And so that's, you know, I would argue kind of a unused area on our campus. So being able to put something there that doesn't affect really our long-range plans, you know, to me is kind of a pretty safe bet.
Commissioner Solison.
And it meets your intent to get them to clean up that area anyway.
Totally.
So that's a benefit. However, to be clear on the capital improvement plan, this doesn't get excluded from that then. You still include this, but you just show that it's progressed, you know, because you're already in the design phase, and you still prioritize it and put those things in. So what we're doing today doesn't exclude it from being in there, and it certainly wouldn't cause you to pay for anything twice.
Yeah. And we'd be looking at 2023 construction for this one. So the salt sand, we want to do both this summer, just got to, you know, there's only so much time. And so, yeah, this one we decided to push off till next summer.
All right. Well, I know I certainly feel comfortable with the award, and I like the idea of not adding in that $8,000. That seems to be redundant with our CIP process. And
Sure.
So, Commissioner Mills.
Is the current cold storage on the National Historic Register?
We laugh, but you never know.
That feeds into the scenic byways intrinsic qualities. Yeah. No.
All right, any further questions for Robbie? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved, Madam Chair.
All right, we have a motion. Is there support?
I'll support.
All right, we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. So now for a grant letter of support for Raise.
Yes, and speaking of the scenic byway, there you go.
Yep.
So, like Commissioner Mills brought up earlier, federal grant opportunities. And this is one of them. And so this particular grant, it's a RAISE grant. I can't remember the acronym. I think it says it in the resolution, but it's
Yep.
a long one. Used to be called, I think, a Tiger grant, and then used to be called something else before, too. It's gone through a lot of different names. Anywho's, the neat thing with this grant, and it's really good, it's a good opportunity for us as such a small rural community to go after a lot of money. Most of the time with these federal grants, there's a match requirement. A lot of times it's an 80-20 split. 80% federal dollars, 20% has to come from us. Some grants, it's even a 60-40 split. So you can imagine that kind of limits how big a project we could do. An additional thing too is, you know, federal grants are reimbursable. So we front the money and then they pay us back. That's another hard part with this. And so you think, you know, if you have, I don't know, pick a dollar amount, $12 million project over 3 months, well, in theory, you're going to get a $4 million bill every single month. That's the billing cycle. So unless you have $4 million on hand to pay that, you know, you have to kind of, you know, scale your expectations. So anyways, this grant is an opportunity for 100% federal funding, so no match requirement from us, which is great. It doesn't go against us either. Sometimes you get bonus points if you put in more money or stuff like that, but because we're rural, that's not part of the scoring process, which is great. The project I am proposing is some badly needed resurfacing up the Gunflint Trail between the 92s and then the last about 10 miles of the trail. So in total, it'd be about 16 miles of reconditioning is what it's called. So we wouldn't be changing the profile, the alignment. We wouldn't be widening the shoulders or anything like that. Just put back what's there. And so in fitting with the historic nature of and the scenic byway qualities, you know, you'd be looking at 11-foot lanes, 2 to 4 foot gravel shoulders. that's that. I mean, it's just a good project. But it's a lot of miles, that's very expensive, and so we were thinking, somewhere in the $14 million range is what that would come in at. So it's due, I think, tomorrow or the day after, and so this is kind of my last thing to include with it, along with the packet and of other information, and so I guess I would entertain questions, or if you think I'm crazy for doing it.
It's just amazing that it's 100%. I mean, that's,
There's
we don't see that often.
No, there's even, what's almost funny is there's another grant opportunity out there for rural road transportation. That's a 60-40 split. So it's kind of it's an interesting one where this one that is supposed to support rural infrastructure actually has more stringent matching requirements than this one, but it's a side tangent for another day.
Other questions or comments?
When we know it, we get the 14 million.
I think, let me look it up quick. It was relatively soon.
Oh.
Where are you? Federal.
Well, I'm guessing there's lots of people out there looking for
Yeah.
money, so.
Well, and it's it's nice because it's a big program. Let's see here. Selections announced August, so I'd know later this summer whether we get it or not. And then it'd be 2027 construction. So the federal stuff generally looks pretty far out.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner Svalason.
Madam Chair, I would make the motion to adopt the resolution for the RAISE grant letter of support.
Thank you so much. Is there support?
Strongly support.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Hawkins. So we have a motion and support. Any further discussion?
Can I just clarify who seconded that?
I
was a
heard
tie.
Commissioner Hawkins first, but
She was
I also
first.
heard Commissioner Storley. Thank you for asking. All right, so a motion and support. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Keep your fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And toes.
And toes. I'll take it. I'll take everything.
All right. And now we have updated project schedule.
Yeah, so this is just an update. I was here, I don't know, a month or so ago, talking about the kind of what's upcoming in the short term, 2022 and 2023. And so with that, though, is our 10-year transportation plan and, keeping up with the 10-year cycle. And so what we're looking at now is out through 2031, I believe. Yes. So you can see there's been some shuffling around of some projects in the short term. I've added some things, before we had talked about, the TST balance and that fund and how County Road 45 came in a little lower than we thought, which is great, opens up other opportunities. And so I wanted to add those opportunities in here. So we had discussed, Cutoff Road is an example, Chicago Bay Road is an example, Tofsy Park Road is an example of quality TST product. That's why we, in my opinion, have that fund and have that funding opportunity. So, I added some of those in. What else did we throw in here? All of our bridges are in here that are eligible to be replaced. I guess, does anybody have any questions? It's, it's a living document. Things always get pushed invariably. It happens. Yeah.
It's really nice to be updated and on a regular basis. So
Sure.
Thank you for that.
Welcome.
Is there any way you could slow down when 2027 comes around?
When's that one?
Well, I was just thinking, wow, you had talked about 8th Avenue West, and then
Yeah.
to see it at 2027, it's like, okay, well, that's a little ways out, but before we know it,
Yeah.
It'll be here.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And it could, a lot of this stuff too is kind of dependent on previous year's things and kind of where we stand financially and workload and stuff, so things could always move up too. It's not so much that things get delayed. Yeah.
It's a very, like you said, it's very helpful to have updates, and it's so nice just to see it in front of us like this, and it's very ambitious. I appreciate that as well, so.
Well, like I said, there's a lot to do. I'm trying to get to the
No
boring.
lack of work for the
No,
highway department.
I'm trying to get to the boring part of my career, but this is fine.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your help today, and
Very welcome.
all your explanation. It's wonderful.
That was it. We did it. Thank you.
All right.
Have a good one.
So Assessor Thompson is up.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, Bob.
So today I just have a single abatement for Michael Pleau, and this is for a property down in Tofty. This is a property that was classified commercial for short-term rental use in 2020. It was then split into two parcels, and the split parcel that was vacant land wasn't in the spreadsheet to review the following year for the short-term rental changes to 4B1 when the new law was passed. So it slipped through the cracks and came to our attention back in around TNT time when the tax estimate came showing a commercial tax bill for 2022. So I put a request before the board today to provide an abatement for to appropriately classify this as seasonal recreational property. It's a $610 reduction to the 2022 tax bill.
Questions? Commissioner Mills?
I was just going to make a motion to approve.
All right. Is there a
Support.
second? We have support. So we have a motion and support. Any discussion? I know we like to correct our mistakes when we find them, so I think that's good. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you, guys. And I will have one of these in a couple of weeks as well for exempt property that had been acquired late in the year last year. So they made an application, a mid-year application for exemption, and we finally just processed that. So that'll be on the agenda in an upcoming meeting. I also plan on presenting some information to the board about the assessment changes. We have sent off our file to the state, and they've accepted it. The printer is currently printing off the statements and mailing out the valuation notices right now, so they should be arriving in mailboxes shortly.
All right, let the fun begin.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, Land Services. We already took a break, so.
Good morning, Madam Chair. I did. I saw that break and I thought,
Darn.
okay, we're good. We're going to be all fresh for this. Would you like me to proceed?
Please do.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. This is everybody's favorite. It's an unbudgeted equipment purchase request. But the good part about this is that there are funds available already in a fund that we have set aside for equipment anyway. So what this is from just a brief background from the beginning of time with regards to the recycling center operations until now. The cardboard trailers, which we have several cardboard trailers, which are remotely positioned out around the county, come in and they get emptied, and traditionally they've always been emptied by hand. Many hands make light work, and so in the past we used to be able to rely on sentence to service, and they really helped out quite a bit. And it's one of those things you never really know how much you enjoy something until it's gone. And so we had sentence to service, and the sentence to service actually youth as well were able to come in and help us with a highly manual portion of labor work in getting those cardboard trailers emptied out. And so we always had just figured that's the way that it has to be done, and that's the way that it's always been done. And we discovered this contraption, or an add-on, a piece of equipment that could be put universally onto our forklifts. We have 2 forklifts in the facility that work as a grapple hook bucket, where we'd be able to actually go into each of the semi-trailers and extract the cardboard. And we're looking at this in 2 different kinds of benefits to the county. One is Mr. Sturm notwithstanding, we don't have the youngest of everybody's getting a little old in there. And what we want to do is be able to protect and keep our staff healthy. It's a very, like I said, a very manual, labor-intense kind of process. And so anything that we can do to kind of lessen the potentials for any kind of injuries or accidents to them, and any kind of comp time is a good thing, and also increase the amount of time in which we can actually get those trailers processed through, because we do have, busy times and we have slower times, but in the busy times, we find ourselves, that we have trailers sitting outside waiting to get emptied, and maybe the commissioners have even received calls about, hey, can we get this trailer transferred out? We have estimated through the vendor that it would be about a fourth of the time to get the trailer emptied out in this process. So that would actually reduce the amount of time that people are having to wait to get these trailers cycled through and put back into place. In looking at just kind of rough numbers, and from a kind of a low standpoint, the piece of equipment is approximately $30,000, a little less than that. It's estimated to last about 15 years, which then equates to about $2,000 a year or $165 a month. If we take, and on a low estimate, say we cycle through 4 trailers in a month, we get 4 staff members going through for 4 trailers in a month at 8 hours for each particular trailer, is 128 work hours, which on a very low level at $17 for just the wage portion of the cost is about a little over $2,000. If you can cut that by a fourth, that reduces that down to about $544, so about a $1,600, a little over that in terms of wage costs as a savings on that for $165 a month. And more importantly, we're looking at the ability to, the benefits of getting the trailers cycled through. And then also, if we do get the trailers cycled through and we find that we have time available, then then we're able to actually service the equipment. And if you've been up to the facility, it's a very messy, dirty process, and so we're able to spend more time then cleaning the facility and keeping it fit for everyone else. So you do have a copy of a quote that's in front of you. Fortunately, even though it had not been placed into this year's budget because we hadn't anticipated it as a purchase, we do have this fund that is and has been set aside, and I always am reluctant to bring it up because any fund that's sitting out there then can be a target to be rated for other projects. So we've been very prudent in its purchase. We have always used it just for equipment purchases. We started replenishing that fund several years ago at the tune of $20,000 a year for that. So we've maintained that balance up high, and we have way more than sufficient funds to be able to cover this, so there will actually be no impact on the budget whatsoever. So I guess I will just turn it back over for any questions that you might have.
All right. Any questions? Commissioner Mills?
Tools that make the job easier really excite me, so thank you for bringing this forward. And I think it makes a whole lot of sense. I appreciate you breaking down the costs like that too, and that kind of calculation I think is really helpful. Yeah, it's just an exciting improvement, and really appreciate the thoughts there.
Thank you.
And I would echo, I appreciate the savings of time and the turnaround on the trailers, getting them back out. Most of all, I appreciate the reduction in potential injury to our staff, and thank you for thinking of that. Commissioner Storley.
Thank you. Well, in the West End, I seem always to say, when's the new trailer coming? So this is like a scoop, huh?
It
And you
is.
scoop out the cardboard. Where does it go then?
Well, what happens, and perhaps Rick can explain the process a little bit more, but you go and you scoop it, and then it pinches down on the cardboard, and then so it creates, it's almost like somebody grabbing the whole handful of it, but it's a bigger, wider scoop, gets a whole lot more cardboard, and then goes up, and then you can bring the forklift right to the horizontal baler and the bucket right there, and it just dumps right in, so people don't have to actually carry it over.
Okay. And are you the scooper duper guy?
Yes. Hopefully more soon.
Yeah, okay. Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, this is Rick Sturm, he's the manager of the facility up there.
Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah. Thank you for bringing this forward, because it evidently will pay in time and safety and money and all of that, so, good deal.
Madam Chair, have you guys by chance seen these in operation?
Yeah,
Oh,
the
okay.
outfit selling them sent us a video
Okay.
and watched it doing virtually the same thing, and he said it would work great, and you can see that it will, so it'll be perfect, Dave.
Yep, great, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved, Madam Chair.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Support.
All right. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. All right. So now Auditor Powers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This will be the first of regular updates on the building and airport fund budgets. So this is through quarter 4, 2021. I'll start with the airport. If you turn to that page. And overall, you can see that revenues are 99%, so they're just about what we expected. Expenses are 66%. Basic explanation here is, we budgeting building fund and capital reserve. We actually keep the capital reserve in the building fund. It's part of that. And we essentially had been using it or planning to use it for the last couple of years with all the projects. You've seen the list of projects. So I just combined them here. There will be money left. We'll actually start reporting on that reserve also. So that total revenue is the building fund and the capital reserve, and we'd thrown in a few thousand because we had some of that contingency to put somewhere, and the board decided to put it into that capital reserve, so it's including all of that. And the I'm actually talking about the building fund, I'm sorry,
Right.
I said the airport.
I was following.
Excuse me, yes.
I went back.
Nobody questioned it, isn't that something? So,
We're just politely.
very polite.
Okay.
So then down below, I'm just listing some of the projects that got completed in 2021, or maybe they weren't completed, but the recycle center project was completed, 141,000. The LEC camera project, there's some of the entities that worked on that project, 31,000, 1,720,000 for the 3 entities. The LEC door project, that technical, all the electronics in that door. Then the highway shop door, 11,500. The insulation project, where we found that many areas where buildings had not been insulated. The IT department over here. LEC, the search and rescue in parts of the community center, that was about $18,000 project. And then the south stairs from the courthouse, the grinding, and then the recoating, about $30,000 for those projects. Any questions on the building fund? Then on the actual airport fund, on the other side, the revenue is at 169%, expenses at 179%. This is very typical because these are long-term projects. So just going over to the revenue side, T-hanger rentals, so that's annual, that's ongoing. And the maintenance grants, that's ongoing. That's what we get each year, about 41,000. The tax revenue, of course. Then down below that in revenues are the projects. We received money for the 2021 crack and seal project. So the grant payment on that, 87,000. And then the CARES, the 2020 CARES Act, we actually received that money in '21. Under the expenses, the obstruction removal project, which was a 2020 project, so about 72,000 there. Yulin Brothers for the actual work, the engineering from RSNH, and then the crack and seal project in 2021 project. Down below, the engineering, and then Farner did the crack and seal for 59,000, and then a little bit of that lighting regulator project, 3,200. Some of that came beginning of this year, so. The rest of the expenses there are the basic operational expenses, and they were actually below this year, about 14,000 below budget on their basic operation. Repairs and maintenance, I don't know how much of that is, COVID-related. I'm not sure. We didn't talk about it, but, repairs and maintenance was low. Utilities was right on, about 25,000. And printing, I don't know what their printing costs are, but they was very, very low, below budget. I've got that as a question for Rod and John. So unless you know, being at the meetings.
I'm at the meetings, but
So-
everything has been by Zoom,
Yeah.
so I haven't had
Yeah.
paper copies.
Yeah.
But I imagine it's for a lot of the contracts that we have, some of the ordinance preparation
Right.
that we've been doing.
We spent almost nothing. So, any questions on those two? Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
So is there a motion to approve or accept the quarterly building, capital fund, and airport fund budget reports?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion from Commissioner Solison. Is there support? Thank you, Commissioner Storley. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion? Hearing or seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
All right. Well, we're moving
Administrator
right along.
Yorkie.
All right. The first item, and the really only listed item under my section, regards the change to payment in lieu of taxes by the state of Minnesota to Cook County. This is something that Commissioner Swalson, I believe, asked to be put on the agenda. And basically what it does is it just addresses inequity that's existed for a long time, where counties in the southern part of the state have seen pretty significant adjustments to payment in lieu of taxes for state-controlled lands, and northern counties have seen little to nothing in the way of increases. And so there's currently legislation that would increase the PILT payment to Cook County from, I think it's $2 to $3 an acre, resulting in a change of revenue in around $200,000+. And so that's what this is about. And N-Club has gone on record supporting this effort to increase PILT for northern counties. And the resolution that is before you would express the county's support for same.
Well, I know in addition to N-Club that the Association of Minnesota Counties, AMC, has proposed this at the legislature. It is one of AMC's priorities, and the idea is to equalize PILT categories and address the inequity that's been going on over a number of years now. So I'm very excited that this is moving forward, and am really supportive of the idea that we could, as a county, support this resolution and move it forward. Other comments or questions?
Well, I appreciate that Senator Bach and Representative Eklund are totally behind this too, and we've discussed it at many different meetings over the years, and, everybody can, from the Arrowhead County meetings that I go to, John Ungaro, and everybody's just keeping our fingers crossed that this will happen.
Absolutely. All right. Well, if there are no further comments, I would entertain a motion to approve this resolution.
Support.
Thank you, Commissioner Storley. Is there support? All right, Commissioner Swallison, we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a resolution.
All right, very good. The next item that I'd like to discuss today is one that I meant to put on for action, and it's the budget calendar for the current, or for fiscal year 2023. And I apologize for not getting it on the agenda, but I would like to ask for the board's approval to accept this calendar and basically implement it according to the schedule that is shown here. And rather than going through line by line, I'll just hit the high points. And I also want to talk about a discussion that we had with the Budget and Facilities Advisory Committee at its last meeting. So this calendar looks pretty much identical to the one that we established for last year. And the key point is we're starting a little bit earlier than we typically have in the past. With the approval of this calendar today, we would move forward on distributing budget materials to all the departments by the end of the week. And generally, we would ask departments to have their preliminary requests back to my office by the end of May. We would spend some subsequent weeks kind of just talking about what those requests are and kind of nailing things down a little bit by the end of June. And then we would plan to do the general fund budget summary presentation to you all on July 26th. That would be followed. We would also have presentations by the sheriff and the highway departments, since they have their own management of their budgets. And then PHHS would also present its budget proposal at the special meeting of the PHHS board at the beginning of August. Key dates this year for the setting of the preliminary budget and levy, that's proposed to occur on September 13th. We would mail out truth and taxation notices to taxpayers around the second week of November. And that's a little bit earlier than we've done in the past because we did have some issues with our fulfillment provider a couple of years ago. And so just making sure there's adequate time to get those notices out so that people have a chance to participate in TNT. Again, this year, as was the case last year, our first business meeting doesn't occur until pretty late into December, so that would be December 13th. And I imagine we'll probably want to do what we did last year, and instead of having the second business meeting between Christmas and New Year's, is just move it up to the date that the committee of the whole meeting would usually occur, which would be the third Tuesday or December 20th. The other thing I wanted to mention, we had a really great and really helpful discussion with the Budget Advisory Committee at its last meeting, and just talked about how to better engage them in the process of the budget development, making sure that there's a little more transparency in how this is done. And I'm not suggesting that there was anything untransparent about the way we did it last year, but it was kind of my first go around as administrator, and got some really great feedback from the group about how we can make this a more interactive process for our committee members. And so that is definitely going to be part of the process this year. And I just want to say, I've seen I've sat in on the Highway Advisory Committee meetings and have seen how productive that discussion has been for our highway department operations. And I see this as the very same thing. I mean, we need to maximize the benefit of having this advisory committee in terms of thinking about budget issues and getting the budget put together. So I'm excited about engaging them in this process as well. So with that, we will post this budget calendar on the county's website, but I'm asking for approval of the calendar so that we can move forward as described.
I'll make that motion to approve this.
All right, so we have a
Calendar.
motion to approve the budget calendar for fiscal year 2023. Is there support?
Support?
Thank you, Commissioner Mills. We have a motion and support. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair. I would just say for August 8th to the 19th, town hall meetings if needed.
Mhm.
How do you look at that if needed?
So that's something, this is kind of an artifact from earlier budget cycles. And we're putting that in there because in the past, of course, we've experienced double-digit increases in the levy. And there was a need for us to have community meetings to get feedback, to share information. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen this year, but you never know. And so I just think it's useful to put this on the calendar in the event that we need to have those kinds of conversations.
I think they're really important. In the West End, I go to township meetings all the time. People are asking questions. I give them what's going on with the county, some highlights. But when we gather as a community in the 5 districts, it gives them a feeling of being a part of asking questions, what's going on, and especially with the budget at that time.
Yeah.
So I don't think it necessarily means that, oh dear, our levy and our budget is going to be way out of whack. They ask other questions. And it isn't just me. I bring along maybe the sheriff or the assessor or public health or whomever, if there's some kind of topic that I think the public in general would be interested in. And of course, you. So,
Sure.
so I think we should be open
Yeah.
to what's going on in maybe the end of July, and then just say, you know, maybe you want to combine a couple of them. I think we have done that with Gunflint and Grand Marais, and then there'd be Hovind separate, and then the West End. So I know it's time consuming, and it's an evening meeting. So,
But it's important.
you know.
I mean, our residents need to
Yeah.
know, how we're spending their taxpayer dollars. And so that, in my mind, that's time well spent.
And we haven't done it for the last, going on 3 years now, so, it's tough, but hopefully the health will continue to be okay, and we have to take that in consideration too.
I think that's what's precluded that, because before, I know our communities expected
Yeah.
to have that interface, but with
Yeah.
the pandemic, that's really what has set that aside, in my
Right.
opinion.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate that suggestion.
All right. Well, we have a motion and support. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We have a calendar.
All right. Thank you, Commissioners. Just a few other items to mention. We did have a mediation session last week with the Cook County Employees Association. It was a really good discussion. I can't say a lot about it at this point, other than we did come to a tentative agreement, and we are expecting CCEA members to vote on a proposal. And assuming that that is passed, I would hope to come forward at our next business meeting with a contract for you all to approve. And that would finalize the third of the 3 contracts that we've negotiated for the current year through 2024. And I just want to give a shout out to the CCEA negotiating team. Felt it was a really productive process with them. And look forward to sharing more information about that agreement at the next meeting. Other things that are going on, we do have tomorrow, the Budget and Facilities Advisory Committee will be having a Zoom meeting with the 2 firms that are finalists for the Capital Improvement Plan consulting work. And we're going to have some questions about their budgets for the work. And then after that, expect to make a recommendation that will come before you to hire a firm to get that process underway. So really excited about that. There have been subsequent discussions also regarding the dog pound. And we do actually have like preliminary drawings for that building, which is proposed to be up at the business park. And there's still a number of details that need to be worked out. As a reminder, this board approved $25,000 in the current year budget to put toward the construction of a new dog pound. The city has recently matched that contribution, so that's $50,000 of public support. And then we also have from Arrowhead Animal Rescue, $55,000 that's been committed. Now, the total project cost for the building alone at this point is in the neighborhood of $140,000, so there's still a gap of roughly $35,000. And Arrowhead Animal Rescue understands that, we are not in a position to budget additional dollars for that, so that gap would need to be made up through fundraising. And they are prepared to do that. And so that's something that will be moving forward. Chris Skildum is also involved in these discussions. And so the way the thing would work is probably the Arrowhead Animal Rescue, because they are the primary funder, have the largest portion of the funding that we have to date, would oversee the development and construction of the dog pound. And then when that's complete, at some point, it would be transferred over either to city or county ownership, since, it would be essentially a public facility. It would be operated by the sheriff's office in partnership with Arrowhead Animal Rescue, just as the old pound was operated. So good discussions going on around that. Still a lot of details that have to be nailed down, but it is moving forward, and I know there's a lot of interest in the community for this to get done. So as we get more information about what the timeline is going to be, we would ideally like to get the project done before the end of the year, but there are a number of variables that we have to get a handle on before we can confirm a timeline. So that's where we are with that. As Leah Ekstrom mentioned earlier, we are launching the comp study. We do need to have the three bargaining units need to vote on their appointees to the working committee. And so we're asking them to identify somebody who can serve on that committee. In addition to representatives from the unions, we'll also have representatives from all levels of the organization, including directors, supervisors, and frontline staff. So, yeah, and so that's another thing that's going on. And then there are numerous smaller things that I won't get into right now, but there's, again, no end of variety to things that pop up every day and every week. So, and I just want to give a shout out to all of our staff. We're kind of at a point now where things are starting to feel kind of normal. The doors are open, we're not masking anymore. And I think everybody's really kind of hungry for the feeling of normal. And it's been a really hard road these last 2 years. And I just want to recognize all of our staff who've hung in there with us and have worked under some really adverse conditions. We are getting through this. There's still a lot of transition going on, of course. But a shout out to all of our staff who are keeping things going and serving our residents. I'm not going to get sentimental about this, but I really believe that public service is a high calling. And it's a privilege to do this work. And I am grateful to all our staff who are every day providing services that folks in our community need across the whole spectrum of departments that we have here. So thanks to our team members for their continuing good work. That's all I have.
Well said, well said. All right, well, we have any commissioner updates, reports from meetings, anything that you'd like to share? Commissioner Hawkins.
I'd just like to report that I was at an excellent Extension Committee meeting yesterday, and I am so excited about what's happening in that area, and I just want to thank Sarah for just jumping in and both feet, lots of balls in the air, and she's handling it well. So very good meeting yesterday.
Good to hear.
And I'll second that, and I'll second your compliments to Sarah on the work that she's doing. We are so lucky to have hired her into that role. And she's bringing a fresh perspective, a lot of energy, and really focusing on updating processes to make them more user-friendly. For example, online signups for space at the community center. There are things that she's doing that are going to make it much easier for residents to take advantage of that facility. So totally agree with you. She's doing an excellent job.
And I'll third that. You know, it's a whole big new shuffle that I've experienced there, and it's good. We never really had a chairperson, and she's doing really well, and she has her guidelines on that, and it's just really refreshing to have new people on board, and go Sarah.
Commissioner Mills?
That makes me wonder further if there could be some, it's an opportunity I see to meld the extension committee as well as the community center committee together. And it's a wonderful opportunity with new leadership and new energy. I don't know if those groups are particularly open to that right now, but I'm hopeful because I think things can be a lot more productive when those two vantage points are on the same page or reading off the same page or whatever. We'll see how far that goes. Yeah, it's just very exciting. So anything we can do to support Sarah too, I think, is important. Just because I gotta imagine it's huge and overwhelming, but I'm not surprised that she's doing so well. It's really exciting for our community.
Well, I think the first step is too, Commissioner Hawkins, aren't you on the extension?
Extension and community
Yes,
center now,
right,
so
right.
I think that's
So-
going to
Yeah,
help
Yeah.
be the
bridge that.
At least to start with a representative from, yeah.
Yep. So test the waters for us.
Oh, I will.
Oh, good.
But I think that's something that is down the road. I don't
Yeah.
think that's
Right.
something we're ready to
Well,
even.
there's lots to develop.
And the Extension Committee is a creature of statute, where the
Yes.
Community Center Board is not.
Good point.
So, in terms of moving toward a single committee, I don't know that that's really feasible, but I think more interaction between those two groups is a good thing. So maybe kind of regular joint meetings
That's what I
to
was gonna say.
share information.
Just periodic, a
And
couple
again,
times a year.
Having Commissioner Hawkins on both groups would be super helpful.
Yep.
Well, I just wanted to mention that I was at the AMC leadership training back at the end of March. It was very, very helpful, very good. I brought a book back that I'll share with everyone. We'll pass it around. And then we have a number of organizations in our community, Higher Ed, CCLEP, Soil and Water. Other presenters are going to be available on Earth Day from 4:30 to 7:30 at Higher Ed. So just wanted people to be aware of that. And then we have some meetings to note. We have our redistricting meeting this evening at 6 p.m. So we'll see everybody back here at 6. We also have our Community Leadership and Joint Powers meeting coming up next week, Tuesday, April 19th via Zoom. Arrowhead Regional Corrections, which Commissioner Hawkins set up for June 17th. And then our Board of Appeals and Equalization on June 23rd. We have a couple of memos, our lodging tax comparison that is there for information. And then we have some really important recognition for our staff members. We have our April anniversaries where we have Dan Berglund from the Highway Department, 12 years. Steve Butts, 27 years with the Highway Department, 27. Wow. And Kurt Laboda, 17 years with the Highway Department. Dusty Nelms, our Recorder's Office, 43 years. Commissioner Mills, how old are you again?
41.
All right, just checking there. A little comparison. And we have Bev Wolke in the Auditor's Office, 17 years. Lynn Wright with Public Health and Human Services, 8 years. And then a big anniversary for Kirk Oberg, who's been with us for 15 years in MIS. And,
Madam Chair?
yes.
Sorry, one meeting that didn't make it onto this agenda, the Housing and Redevelopment Authority Board will be meeting on Wednesday, April 20th, and that's going to be at 3 p.m. here in the Commissioners' Room. And I'd also note, the cat is now out of the bag. The HRA has hired its first executive director, who's Jason Hale, currently with the City of Duluth, and has just a ton of housing experience. And we are super excited to bring him on board. and apply his knowledge and experience to helping us solve our problems. So really, really happy about that.
All right, great. And last but not least, we have Melissa Rexrode, who is moving to an IT technician position, and Diana Dimitrova to the attorney's office as an administrator. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, shall we adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right,
Support?
we have it. Thank you all.